Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. Should we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today? Where we'll be relaxing as per usual. Rather late episode today. I was a bit busy this evening, but anyway. Yeah, what should we talk about today? I don't know. It's a very good question. I need to record some pre-recorded episodes for this weekend as well, so I may be doing that today as well. I don't know. Arshlan's games. What's going on? What am I thinking about? What is on the conversational wavelength? Conversational, like library. This catalogue that we're searching through. What are we going to talk about? I don't really know. I don't have anything off the top of my head, to be honest. But good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 11:12 p.m. on Monday, February 19th, 2024. I almost couldn't read the date today. Yeah, I don't really know, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I have anything like on mind which I'm like, yeah, this is something to talk about. I can say like something that's happened in the games recently, like Project Sakai. We have a new more and more jump event coming out, and everyone thought it was going to be a Haruka event, and then it turns out it's a Minori event, and everyone's like, what? Is that exciting? I don't really know. Probably not. But it's not like a huge amount that's been all that exciting recently. I'm still trying to think. I'm trying to think what's happened recently. What can I talk about? I mean, I've got another D&D session on Wednesday. Yeah, but like, how's the prep for that going? There's too many things going on right now. Like, I've prepped some of it. Like, I know what's gonna happen. The thing I need to prep now is the battle map itself. I'm very thankful because part of me was like, I wonder if I can do this entire thing making like all the assets of a thing myself, because in an ideal world that'd be fantastic. Like, I make all the background art, I make the battle maps, I make the sprites and the character profiles of pictures and things like that. And then I thought about it a bit more, like for more than a second. I was like, why would I do that? that's an outrageous amount of effort for something which I'm not going to say is going to be unappreciated. I think some of it would be appreciated. Like, I think if I did character profile drawings, my friends would be like, whoa, that's pretty cool. But a lot of the characters, like, we don't even meet. Like, for the other session that I prepped, not like prepped, like I just found art for like 6 of the characters. 6 characters are kind of related to this person's backstory, one of my friend's backstory, and he didn't even talk to 2 of them, to be perfectly honest. Which is just like, fair enough. I didn't say he had to or anything like that, but I just found it like funny. It would be something rather pointless endeavour, I think, to do all that work just to like have it not even be seen, I suppose, for the majority of it, right? But yeah, like there's part of me which has this innate desire, which I'm sure resides in most of us, to if I want to create something, I want to create all of it, Like, what do I mean by that? Like, there's part of me which I don't know if it's necessarily out of stubbornness or like necessity out of like control or something, but it's a sort of desire to do everything of a part of a project of something I'm interested in. Like, I think the go-to one that people always go to is like, oh, imagine you're like making a game, like who would you team up with, like what would you outsource and that sort of thing. And part of me instinctively, intrinsically, it's like woven into my DNA and my blood. I'm just like, I want to do all of it, I would do the programming, I would do the art, I would do the music and that sort of thing. Maybe I wouldn't do the sales part. Well, maybe I could do the sales part, I'm not particularly sure, or the marketing. But then, like, let's be realistic. Even if I theoretically could do all of that, would I do all of it? And the answer is probably not, to be perfectly honest. And I'm not even sure if I'd enjoy doing all of it. I think there's parts of it I certainly would enjoy, but there's a reason that people, collaborate as teams on larger scale projects. You can accomplish a lot more as a group than you can as one person. But I can't get rid of it, I suppose, that feeling to be like, I still have that innate desire to want to control. I guess it is kind of about control, maybe, for me. Like, it's a sort of thing where, like, as I was going to say an artist, but I think as someone who, like a creator of anything in general, you have a concept of what you want, presumably. Even if you don't think yourself as a creative type, you presumably have ideas about something that you're passionate about, right? That you'd want, and you'd like to, have all aspects of it, control it. You want it all to sort of align with your dream thing, because I suppose that's where the concepts of these things are coming from in the first place. When I think about me making a game, I'm not thinking about it in practical terms. Why? Because I don't think I'm probably actually going to make, maybe I'll make, there's a chance I make a game in my lifetime, certainly, but as of right now, me talking about it, I don't have an immediate plan to create a game or anything like that. It's a lot of work, to be perfectly honest, and I just don't have time for it. So talking about it like now, it's talking about like a flight of fancy. It's talking about it in the dream world. It's talking about it in a very sort of creative, but creative idealistic way. I don't have to think about the realms of reality. I don't have to think about like constraints about my time, my energy, like my money or something. I don't know how much money I'm necessarily investing into spend creating a game, but these things don't matter when I'm talking in the theoretical, right? So I guess it's nicer to sort of sit here and theorize, what would it be like if I did a programming? What would it be like if I did VR? What would it be like if I did the music as well? And it's sort of like, it's quite indulgent, I suppose, in a way. I'm indulging in a fancy, which is, I guess that's literally it. You're just sort of indulging in a fancy. I'm not saying you are, because maybe you don't do this. Maybe when your reaction is like, hey, what would you do? Like, how much of the control would you like if you made a game? You might just be sitting there and be like, I would like none of the control but all of the money. And I'd be like, fair enough. That's totally fair. That's not me, but that's totally fair. I understand it. But I think inherently it's a foolish concept to go after. I mean, not to say like it's an impossible concept. There certainly have been people who out there who've made like every aspect of a game, right? Like Lucas Pope with Return of the Obra Dinn and other games he's made. Hold on, Papers, Please. And the person who made Cave Story, I think, made like every single aspect of a game. I mean, Undertale was not quite solely made by Toby Fox, right? Because I think he had some like guest artists and he had like a lot of other people helping him, but he did like the programming on like game engine, and he did the music and marketing. That's still quite like the lion's share, I think, of a game development in the first place, which makes it a fascinating thing. I don't know. But people like that who can do that, I suppose, are, what's the opposite of a dime a dozen? Like a billion a 1? A billion a 0. A billion infinitesimal, something like that. You might be like, infinitesimal is not a number, it's a concept of a number, of something so like small, or like arbitrarily small, and can get arbitrarily smaller, and you'll be like, okay, whatever. Yeah, those people are very rare in the first place, and I think it's a bit of a food. I think it's a bit, I don't know if it's foolish or conceited, but like over ambitious to a certain degree, even for someone like me to be like, yeah, I would be one of those people. I don't know if I would be one of those people. I think the only way, there's a lot of things in life where, if I sat there and think and like imagine myself, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be one of those people. But then, you think about it a bit more and be like, I don't really know if I would be one of those people. It's well and good me saying that, I suppose, in a theoretical sense, but without like the empirical data to back it up, kind of holds no meaning. And you can kind of claim anything, right? You can claim the impossible if you don't, if the burden of proof does not, actually reside with you, right? So I don't know. Creating the entirety of a D&D campaign, at least I'm glad that I very much accepted to myself. It was like, it's a silly idea to try and draw everyone. It's a silly idea to try and make all these battle maps. I'm just taking these resources from online, to be perfectly honest, and that's far easier. I mean, it's within a closed circuit of like 8-9 people, I suppose, that this D&D campaign is being shared with. So I think it's inherently silly to be like, to think too much about it in the first place. I spoke about it a bit like 5 days ago or something, about like a conversation about AI art and using it, and and the fact that like I'm trying to not use AI art, which I think is totally fair, but also at the end of the day, when you're sharing it with 8 people, it's not really much different from you, like, I don't know, but just sharing something like on your phone to someone sitting next to you, right? The scale of scope is so small. It's kind of, if anything, it's kind of conceited to think it has any influence past that in the first place. Not to say that, it's not something that I will try to do, like, because I feel a lot of the time the art not done by AI has a lot more personality and soul into it, but also at the same time I've got to understand that if I have a vision in my mind, it's not always going to be feasible to find the exact right art piece for it, and even if it was, I don't always have the time to do so. So I mean, I haven't used any AI yet, or at least knowingly used any AI art yet, but at the same time, like, I'm sort of just like, am I doing it any better this way? Like, I'm using non-AI art, but it's not like it's particularly credited. I mean, I have kept like a running total of like where I found most of the sources are for the things I've used, but it's not like it's being credited. It's not like I've got like a public page for all my friends to be like, hey, this is where all the art, this is where I got it all from, and then it's not like even if I did have that, would they even look it up? I mean, maybe if they saw a really cool piece of art, they'd be like, oh, Anna, where'd you get this from? I actually really like art, this person's this is art style, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I can point you to that direction. But to say it's on the same sort of level, I suppose, as someone making a public project is, if anything, too conceited. I'm not going to say that it's not a good practice, certainly, to do, you know, as an artist myself, you know, certainly is like credit artists where you can. But then I guess if I think about it in the situation from the other perspective, if someone used my art was like, I'm going to use it in a D&D campaign, I'm not going to credit, I'm going to be like, oh, that kind of sucks. It would be nice if you at least paid attention to where you got it from, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. But I guess that's, you know, I think about it, you know, maybe lawyers are onto something with the whole commercial use versus personal use thing, hey? Maybe it's something I'm overthinking about, but it's also something which I think it's still at least good to stick by within principle, right? For the principle of it. maybe that's why. Part of it as well is like the idea I want the perfect thing in my mind, and I don't want to like unduly not credit someone for their own hard work. So it's just sort of like, well, if I put my own hard work in it, then it's fine. Which is, yeah, I mean, technically true, but like, how thin are you willing to stretch yourself just for all of this? And, you know, that's an answer I'm like, let's be realistic about it. I don't know, it's probably a bit of a scale, like on where you draw the line of these sort of things, which is totally fair. And I mean, this is not even something I've thought about all that much. I've just sort of brought it up randomly in the middle of this, not in the middle, but in this video with not much preparation behind it. I'm just sort of spitballing out here, you know? But anyway, the entire concept of doing something entirely yourself is certainly something I feel like I find myself falling prey to far often than I should. It'd be so much easier just to work with like bases of things, and it's something I just got to allow myself to do, you know. And I think part of the reason that I'm doing it comfortably, I suppose, in this D&D campaign is the fact that it would be so ridiculous to do it otherwise. Like, it's actually to the point of like even I look at it and be like, that's ridiculous, no one could do that. Because, you know, running one D&D campaign is a lot. Running two is also it's not quite double, depending on how much work you necessarily put in, because I feel like it's ideas of course can be reused against both, and in my case, you know, it's the same world, so all the world building I've done for one campaign is exactly the same world building I've done for another campaign. The only thing is just now they're geographically separated, so it's just sort of like, okay, you know, I'm not going to say it's not more than one time's work, but it's not probably quite double work or something like that. It's just like such a ridiculous amount of work in the first place that I feel like it would be so ridiculous to be like, alright, let's make all the assets of this for myself, to the point where not even I could conceivably believe it. But there's other things I've done before, I'm sure. Like, I've worked on projects where I'm just like, okay, you know, I can conceive of myself doing all of this, creating all aspects of this, so let's do so. Like, I'm trying to think of some of these birthday projects. I think it's quite ambitious in the first place, as to make an entire song and like music videos out of these sort of things, and or like even designing games, like the manga, which is it's still one of my favourite ones, and just like drawing all of it, which to be fair, it wasn't just me drawing it, it was me and two other friends me and one other friend who did most of it, and then another friend who did, I would say, like maybe like a fifth or quarter-ish of it, and then like me just picking out help from a load of random other friends here and there. Would I do it differently now? Yeah, I'd probably do it differently now. I'd certainly think I'd reduce the scope, and I'd probably ask more people. Then I mean, I still did ask like 10 people, but I didn't expect many people to actually do something. It was more like people are likely just to do one frame of it, that sort of thing, right? But still, I can't get rid of this idea in my head, because I mentioned this before. I would love to like draw, not a comic, but like a webcomic sort of thing one day, to tell a story about like the characters I have in my head. I'd love to do that one day, but of course I want to up to the level of polish of like ongoing webcomics we have now, but that's only reasonable, I suppose, with a team. Not many of these or you have an absolute glacial pace, I suppose, of updating the pages, and it's also would not even be something I do full time. It would have to be something I do in my secondary time, but it's not even my secondary time, because, you know, obviously I've got work, and then I got my secondary time I dedicate to doing this YouTube channel, and my tertiary time I dedicate to doing drawing, and then it's like, okay, well, what about so I guess it's like my tertiary time, and then it's sort of like it goes up and down, because now my tertiary time is kind of like D&D, and it's like my I don't know what's fourth quarterly time is now drawing. I mean, it's like, okay, what about that whole idea of me wanting to write, and what about, that's like, I don't know, pentary time. But I was like, okay, but music might come across about that, because if I start doing music and then it'll push down like writing to down like hexary time. It's like, you can't have a webcomic without writing. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be any good. So, I mean, I think this coupled with the fact that I do tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, and I feel like I have this natural instinct, which I'm not going to say, I mean, it's not great, mind you, but I'm not going to fault myself, because it's a very human desire to, not start something until I know I'm ready, quote, quote, except for my vision of what ready, quote, quote, is like an unobtainable perfection, and thus it never starts in the first place. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why this D&D campaign took me so long to do, despite the fact I mentioned it ages ago, and it's because I was like, I don't think I'm going to be ready. And the truth of the matter is, and it's certainly something which I need to instill in myself more, is I never will be ready. You just kind of, if you spend your life waiting for the world, for you to be ready for the world, I mean, the world's never going to wait to be ready for you. It's going to move on without you, right? It's something you just got to sort of dive in. But it's, at the same time, it's always a balancing act in the world. I do tend to not overindulge. I do tend to overwork for things which I'm interested in. I tend to do too much stuff and end up burning. I don't actually. It's not to say I don't burn out. That's obviously ridiculous. But I probably subject myself to more burnout than I should do necessarily. Like, if burnout is like a scale from 0 to 100, and I'd be like comfortable at like 30% or something, I'd be like, oh, I'm currently been operating at 70% for ages now, and I just didn't realise it or something like that. So it's all about getting a right balance, don't want to be too indulgent, but don't want to be too, anxious about them. I'm not sure if anxious, right? Hesitant about these sort of things. But I mean, that's the kind of way of life. There's always like multiple balancing scales, which you've got to find the right sweet spot in. And no one's going to tell you what the answer is, because no one really knows what the answer is. It's something you got to feel out for yourself, and it's different for every person, right? Anyway, I guess I'm kind of glad about at least starting this D&D thing. At least, how long is it going to go on for? Who knows? We'll just have to see what happens. I know I've been speaking about it a lot in these recent episodes as well. But I think it really is just sort of like a major thing which has been happening with me, to me, around me recently. So it's sort of like an easy diving off board for a conversational piece. There's still surprisingly quite a lot of space for all these flowers. Normally after it rains, we would never have this much space for flowers in our inventory, but still. So yeah, I don't know. It's the innate desire to do everything. To control everything, I suppose. The innate desire to have the credits be dear darling, dear darling, dear darling, dear darling, dear darling. Which is, I suppose ridiculous in its own right. Yeah, I don't know. Because part of me is like, I like the concept of like running a business, rather than like it. I guess I want to create these ideas, but the thing is like, maybe I have an inherent distrust to be like, do I know people who, or do I feel like other people would be able to create the thing I want? And I'm like, in certain parts, yeah, I'm sure they could, but in certain parts, I'm like, maybe they won't. I don't know. Nor does it really matter, because I don't run a business. But I'm just like thinking ahead. Like, what if I ran like an animation studio or something? Would I be comfortable with that? If I were like creating a cartoon that I wanted to make, and me picturing it right now, I'm like, yeah, because I would have the money, and I would be hiring like good artists. I'd be hiring good writers. I'd be hiring good storyboarders and people and like managers, or at least try to, who have like experience in the industry, and they'd all come together to work on this like idea that I have put forth. That seems like the dream. I think it's the in-between, once you have a business stage, it's fantastic. And if you're working like indie by yourself and you have full control, that's fantastic. But then you have to like slope down it a bit, where you're doing like these passion projects, but or like voluntary work where everything is not quite set in stone. Some you'll have varying levels of degrees of skills, and your own experience is not high enough to be regarded as like a cornerstone of a project, etc., etc. And then it starts going up again. I don't know. I don't really consider this before. Anyway, control everything. I think I'll do some Happy Home Paradise episodes now. They'll probably be quite quick ones, but we'll see. So for now, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Hannah across New Horizons. I've been dear darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope you see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.